Hey everyone, I just opened my fridge this morning, and the first thing I saw was a container of canned fruit cocktail that someone left half finished. Right beside it, a cup of yogurt with chunks of ripe banana mixed in, and a small bag of raisins, slightly crumpled, forgotten but still there. Everything looks so healthy, right? Colorful, convenient, sweet. But let me be honest with you, we're not going to sugarcoat things today. Not when these little gestures of so-called health have become the most silent sabotage of male vitality I've seen in my 23 years of practice. That's why I'm here today. I'm not here to sweeten your day. I'm here to show you the hidden face of these fruits that, although they seem like friends, are actually working against you. And if you're a man over 60, what I'm about to tell you could be the difference between a life full of energy and a long list of pills, doubts, and unexplainable fatigue. So before we dive in, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do. And tell me in the comments which city and province you're watching from and what time it is there. I love knowing who's on the other side of the screen, whether you're in Vancouver sipping your morning coffee or in Halifax just waking up, or maybe in Winnipeg bundled up against the cold. I want to hear from you. Now, make yourself comfortable. Let's get right to it. I remember Harold, one of my first patients here in Toronto. He came to me about 15 years ago, sat down in my office and said, "Doc, I don't understand. I sleep my 8 hours. I don't smoke. I walk around High Park every morning, but I feel apathetic, no energy, weak." When I asked him what he ate for breakfast, he answered with a proud smile, "Fruit, because it's the healthiest thing there is." And there it was. I knew right then this was going to be one of those cases. Fruits in general have a good reputation, and I won't deny it. There are fruits that can genuinely save your life. But others, especially after 60, they're like wolves in sheep's clothing. Those fruits you think are helping you are actually draining your testosterone, messing with your insulin levels, and sabotaging your nitric oxide, which is basically the holy grail of erections. Do you want to maintain firmness, recover your energy, avoid that afternoon crash around 3 o'clock, or that lack of motivation at night? Then you need to know the invisible enemy sitting right there in your own kitchen. Let me start with canned fruits. They seem practical, yes, sweet and tender. They're favorites among many older men who maybe don't chew as well as they used to, or who are just looking for something quick and easy. But here's the thing. They're floating in syrup loaded with high fructose corn syrup, one of the worst aggressors against the male hormonal system. That syrup doesn't just spike your insulin like a rocket. It also turns your body into an estrogen factory. Yes, you read that right. Estrogen, the female hormone. The higher your estrogen goes, the lower your testosterone drops. And when testosterone levels fall, well, you know exactly what happens. And then there are ripe bananas. They have a good reputation, but for men over 60, they're not as innocent as they appear. That banana that seems so noble, rich in potassium, is also loaded with simple sugars. Every time you eat one on an empty stomach or between meals, you're sending your body a confusing message. Store fat. And worse still, those insulin spikes leave you over time with a slower metabolism, lower testosterone production, and a sluggish vascular system. Now, I know some of you might be wondering about green bananas, and that's a fair question. A few of you have asked me about this before. Green bananas are actually quite different. They contain more resistant starch, which doesn't spike your blood sugar the same way. So if you're going to have a banana, greener is better, but those spotted, super ripe ones that taste like candy, those are the ones to watch out for. Then we have grapes. Beautiful, juicy, fresh. But if they're not organic, they're coated with pesticides that disrupt your hormones. Many of these pesticides are classified as xenoestrogen compounds, meaning they mimic estrogen and block your testosterone. So that cup of grapes you eat before bed thinking it's a healthy dessert could actually be telling your body to act less like a man. And finally, dried fruits. Raisins, dates, figs. Did you know that 1 cup of raisins has more sugar than a can of pop? They're concentrated glucose bombs stripped of the fiber that once protected them. Your body absorbs them like an electrical shock. And as if that weren't enough, many are coated with refined vegetable oils and preservatives that interfere with zinc absorption. Zinc is the key mineral for sperm production and testosterone. Here's an interesting fact for you. In ancient Rome, gladiators avoided certain dried fruits before battles because they said it softened the warrior's will. Myth or ancient wisdom? I'm not entirely sure. But after more than 2 decades of clinical experience, I wouldn't dare ignore it. And more importantly, if like many men you're experiencing fatigue, decreased libido, non restorative sleep, or a persistent lack of enthusiasm, I want you to ask yourself, what fruits are you really eating? Because fruit isn't the enemy, but the wrong fruit absolutely is. I'll close this section with advice my grandfather gave me when I was young. Don't eat what comes in a package or a can if you can avoid it. Living fruits still have their strength. The ones that are already dead only diminish yours. Tomorrow, when you open your fridge, remember that. Because sometimes the difference between a lukewarm life and a vibrant one is simply choosing the right fruit. When I met Raymond, I thought he was at least 10 years older than the 68 years he claimed. His voice was soft, his walk was slow, and his energy, well, it was like someone had removed his batteries. He had that look many men wear when they walk into my office, a mix of embarrassment, resignation, and a touch of hope. Doctor, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't feel like doing anything anymore. It's something they never say out loud, but I already knew what he meant. It wasn't loss of appetite or occasional fatigue. It was that deep emptiness you feel when your body starts disconnecting from desire, from firmness, from that vital impulse that used to feel so automatic. I asked him about his habits. He described his routine with military precision. Wake up at 7. His black coffee, a cup of canned fruit with light syrup, his blood pressure pill, his slow walk through the neighborhood, and not much else. That fruit cocktail had been his sacred breakfast for over 12 years. I always thought it was healthy. It's fruit, right? That question comes up more often than you'd imagine. I showed him the label of the product he'd been eating. Sugar, corn syrup, preservatives, fruits blanched and soaked in a viscous liquid that had more chemicals than actual food. And there, for the first time, I noticed a flash of surprise in his eyes. Not anger, not disbelief. Surprise, as if someone had just told him his umbrella had holes in it. In studies on male health, especially over the last 5 years, it's been observed that frequent insulin spikes caused by foods rich in simple sugars can directly interfere with testosterone production. Nitric oxide, the molecule responsible for enabling good vasodilation, meaning blood flow toward the penis, is drastically reduced in bodies that are inflamed by diet. And that was Raymond, a body silently inflamed by the sugar in his breakfast. So I proposed a change. Nothing drastic, nothing extreme. Just replace those canned fruits with half a cup of fresh blueberries, a handful of unsalted walnuts, and a teaspoon of chia seeds. At first he resisted. But doctor, blueberries are expensive. So we talked about priorities. And I shared a bit of trivia that made him laugh. In medieval times, sugar was so expensive they stored it in locked containers like jewels. Today it's so cheap we hide it in fake fruits. After a week, Raymond wrote to me, Doctor, it's not like I'm planning to run a marathon, but I woke up today with an energy I haven't felt in years. He returned to the clinic after 3 weeks. His voice was stronger, his posture firmer. And most importantly, he looked me in the eye and said, Doctor, I passed the test. He didn't need to tell me what happened. I could see it in his eyes, hear it in his tone, sense it in the silence. That's the moment when an older man remembers he's still a man. And the most fascinating thing is that the change didn't come from a pill or complicated therapy. It came from an adjustment on his plate, from eliminating something that seemed harmless, from allowing his body to do what it already knows how to do, just without obstacles. Today, Raymond laughs when he sees those little cups of fruit at the grocery store. They're like ex-girlfriends you remember fondly, but would never invite home again. And honestly, he's not wrong. There are foods that are part of your history, that were there in difficult times, that maybe even saved you from hunger or hardship. But when you reach a certain age, it's no longer about nostalgia. It's about surviving with dignity, with desire, with strength. Raymond taught me that there's no age limit for waking up. You just need the willingness to examine the details, because sometimes the missing piece of your hormonal puzzle is floating in a cheap syrup. I was in the waiting room when I saw a gentleman pull something from his pocket, like it was gold, a small bag of raisins. He opened it carefully, took a few, put them in his mouth, and chewed as if they were medicine. He looked at me, smiled, and said, They're healthy, right? Better than candy. And there it was again, that same thought that throws off the hormonal levels of so many older men. The belief that what's natural is always good, and that small and sweet can't do harm. Look, I have nothing against raisins or dates or dried figs. The problem isn't the taste, it's their brutal concentration of sugar. When you dehydrate a fruit, you don't just remove the water and reduce the volume. You don't remove the sugar. It's like squeezing all the sweetness into a concentrated capsule that passes directly into your blood without asking permission. 1 cup of raisins can contain more than 85 grams of sugar. That's more than a regular can of Coke. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is that most older men don't know this, and therefore have no control over the situation. Dates, for example, have become super popular among older men seeking natural alternatives to replace dessert or give up cookies. But that couple of dates per day becomes 4, then 6, and finally you're eating the equivalent of a glucose bomb right before bed. And what happens next? Insulin levels spike drastically, trying to process all that sugar. Testosterone levels plummet because your body prioritizes glycemic stability. Nitric oxide decreases, affecting blood circulation. And you feel strange, tired, slow, foggy-headed, without desire. Yes, without desire. Because your body, instead of building muscle, regulating hormones, or preparing your next direction, is in crisis mode, trying to balance your blood sugar. Here's another bit of history for you. 15th century Tibetan monks used dried fruits only in spiritual ceremonies, not in daily life, because they said it made their senses too sharp, and that outside of context, it could unbalance a man's heart. Now, back to the present. Many of the dried fruits you buy at supermarkets today are bathed in refined vegetable oils like soybean or sunflower oil. Why? So they don't stick together. And what do those oils do in your body? They block zinc absorption. And here's another gem. Zinc is an essential mineral for testosterone production, sperm quality, erectile function, and your immune system. Remove zinc, and everything starts crumbling. Think of it this way. Your testosterone is a fire. Zinc is the firewood. And those raisins you eat with good intentions are deliberately wetting the wood before you can light it. And what about sulfites? Those invisible preservatives they use so dried fruits don't darken. They can also cause inflammatory reactions, especially in older men with respiratory or digestive issues. Chronic inflammation equals unstable hormone levels. In other words, that natural snack you keep on your desk or in your glove compartment could be hurting you more than a bag of chips. And the worst part is you don't even realize it. Let me tell you about Richard. 64 years old, divorced, a hard-working guy from Edmonton. Lately, he felt like nothing motivated him. Not at work, not in his personal life. He kept bags of dates at his office, raisins at home. Eating them seemed like a healthy routine. When we removed them and replaced them with cucumber slices, with a squeeze of lemon, unsalted nuts, and cool kiwi, something changed. It wasn't immediate, but 2 weeks later he wrote to me. Doctor, I dreamed about something I hadn't dreamed about in a long time. I felt young. That kind of message is priceless. That's why I insist. Natural doesn't automatically mean good for you, especially when it comes to modified, dried, packaged fruits, mixed with additives, and consumed without control. A piece of advice from a patient I've always admired. If it grows on the branch, don't put it in your mouth unless it still looks like it did on the tree. And while that might sound extreme, sometimes we need to get back to basics because your body, remember, your body knows what strength is. It knows firmness, it knows desire. You just need to stop interfering with decisions disguised as health. Now let me tell you about the fruits that actually work for you. The ones that support your testosterone, improve your circulation, and help you feel like yourself again. First, watermelon. This fruit contains citrulline, an amino acid that converts to arginine in your body and helps produce nitric oxide. Better blood flow, better erections. Some researchers have even called it nature's Viagra. Have a cup of fresh watermelon in the morning and you're giving your body a head start. Second, pomegranate. This one's a powerhouse. Studies have shown that pomegranate juice can increase testosterone levels and improve mood. It's also packed with antioxidants that protect your blood vessels. A small glass of pure pomegranate juice, no added sugar, can make a real difference. Third, blueberries. These little guys are loaded with flavonoids that improve blood flow and reduce inflammation. They're low in sugar compared to other fruits and won't spike your insulin. A handful of fresh blueberries with your breakfast is one of the best things you can do for yourself. Fourth, avocado. Yes, technically it's a fruit. Avocados contain healthy fats that support hormone production, including testosterone. They're also rich in zinc and potassium. Half an avocado a day keeps the hormone decline away, as I like to say. So there you have it, 4 fruits to avoid, 4 fruits to embrace. It's not about giving up fruit entirely. It's about making smarter choices. For those of you who've been making smoothies with bananas, mangoes, and all sorts of mixed fruits, here's my advice. Build your smoothie around blueberries or half an avocado. Add some spinach, a bit of unsweetened almond milk, and maybe some chia seeds. Skip the ripe banana. Skip the fruit juice. You'll get the nutrition without the sugar bomb. I want to close with something important. Many of you have written to me over the years, and I noticed something in your messages. You're not just looking for information. You're looking for hope. You're looking for someone to tell you that it's not too late, that your best days aren't behind you. And I'm here to tell you they're not. Your body has an incredible capacity to recover when you give it the right fuel. I've seen men in their 70s rediscover energy they thought was gone forever. I've seen marriages rekindled, confidence restored, lives transformed, all because of small changes in what goes on the plate. You're not alone in this. Every morning when I sit down to record these videos, I think about all of you. The man in Calgary who told me he finally feels like himself again. The gentleman in Montreal who said his wife noticed the difference before he did. The fellow in St. John's who wrote to say he walked an extra kilometer yesterday just because he felt like it. That's why I do this. So tomorrow morning, when you open your fridge, remember what we talked about today. Skip the canned fruit cocktail. Put down the raisins. Reach for the blueberries, the watermelon, the avocado. Your body will thank you. And more importantly, you'll thank yourself. Take care of yourselves, everyone. I'll see you in the next video. And don't forget to tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read every single one.